Good evening and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shobh. On the programme tonight, our top debate, which is a topic making headlines around the world. The great Oscar bash-up. Will Smith slaps Chris Rock for insulting his wife. India's leading comedians join us in a moment as we debate, does a joke justify this sort of physical assault? It's an incident which has disturbed so many. Will Smith has been a hero for so many. Many are saying that there needs to be some sort of action against Will Smith. Hitting someone just cannot be accepted. Next up on the show, India's biggest multiplex owners decide to merge to fight off the challenge from OTT platforms like Netflix. Hammered by zero footfalls during COVID, is there still space for old world movie watching? Or does entertainment now mean being incarcerated in our homes? That was, in fact, one of the quotes used by one of the two very special guests who you'll see in this interview. Two very special guests tonight, Ajay Bijli of PVR, Siddharth Jain of Inox. But let's, in fact, bring you the big video that everybody is talking about. The moment when Will Smith, one of the world's greatest, biggest Hollywood superstars, went onto the stage at the Oscars and slapped the comedian Chris Rock for making jokes at his wife.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? That was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me. Wow, dude.
Yes.
It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name.
I'm going to, okay?
Well, that was an episode which actually shocked so many around the world. Joining us now, some of India's finest comedians. Is there a line which comedians shouldn't cross? Does anything justify that sort of violence at all? We're joined by Papa CJ, Nishant Tanwar, Rohit Gupta and Niti Palta, four of India's finest comedians. Thank you very much for being with us. Papa CJ, to you first. Is there a line that you as a comedian would not cross?
Vishnu, for starters, I think you've cracked the first joke of the night by saying India's finest comedians, because I'm definitely not a part of that group. As far as crossing a line is concerned, Vishnu, it's very personal. Now, I think each comedian sets their own boundaries. So, for example, for me, if you come for a public show, if I'm at a theater, I will do what I want. But if I'm performing at a corporate show or a private event, I will respect the boundaries and guidelines of the environment that I'm in. That being said, each comedian as well. So for me, I have no problem teasing my audience. I have no problem embarrassing them, but I never want to be hurtful. And that's a personal choice. When things like this happen, when Charlie Hebdo happened, for example, you can debate till kingdom come on whether it was right or not. Are you surprised? No. So if you do things that are deeply offensive to some people, certain people will react. Some of them may react violently. So as a comedian, the decision you have to make is it important for you to get that point across, or do you value your personal safety more? I mean, yes, I don't think violence is ever the appropriate response. But the fact is, in some cases, it will happen. So as comedians, you also have to walk a very fine line. That being said, Vishnu, I sometimes operate in a bubble because most of my work is sort of corporate kind of stuff. But I was at an open mic night in Gurgaon recently, and I heard some of the jokes that young comedians were cracking. Yep. As a comedian, I was offended. As somebody who's not deeply...
You were offended at the content? You were offended at people being insulted?
No, I was offended at the content. I'm not somebody who's deeply religious, but the kind of things that were being said with no humor in it at all.
Right.
I mean, I was shocked.
So hate being passed off as comedy, right?
Yeah, and I'm the kind of guy you would expect, to say, oh no, it's comedy, you can do what you want. But even for me, I was like...
You felt offended.
Okay. I felt, what's the point of this? I'm not saying violence is the answer to it. But I can see why people would be offended by some of the things that are being passed off as comedy.
Nishant, let me ask you, the fact that Will Smith appears to have been let off, Chris Rock says that he doesn't want to file charges against him. Does that set a wrong precedent?
I think it's also because the kind of camaraderie these guys have between them. What it looks like that with Will Smith, what happened, it was just, in the spur of the moment he did that. But otherwise, the reason being, the Chris Rock took the liberty to crack a joke. And Will Smith was initially laughing. If you look at the video,
yeah, he was.
He was laughing. Everyone was laughing. And the moment he looked at his wife, and when she was not laughing, he suddenly, got offended and he went on stage. So I think they want to keep it within, I think there's an official statement that said that let's solve it within the family and something like that. Except Will's son's tweet, which said that's how we do it.
that was a bit bizarre, yes.
Yeah.
That seemed to justify everything.
Exactly, yeah. So,
Niti, in your eyes, has Will Smith, who's been a real hero for so many years, since the late 80s, early 90s, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was what I remember him so long ago. From that to megastar now, in your eyes, has he fallen?
Actually, firstly, I think it's our fault. We need to stop calling them punchlines because people are taking them far too literally. Today, I did say that he's now just an actor, no longer a hero, because I don't know if Will Smith doing this is setting a very dangerous precedent. And Will Smith doing it and getting away with it is even worse. I'm not surprised that Chris Rock didn't press charges. I didn't expect him to. But somewhere, nothing justifies violence. You don't like a joke, the cameras are on you, don't smile, show your frown, show your disapproval, and the message will get across. But getting up, and I agree that, okay, maybe if it was a spur of the thing, it would have taken him time to get up, walk, and slap. There should have been some rationale kicking in at some point. This was sheer bullying in my eyes.
Yeah. Rohit, do you think that he should have been thrown out of the Oscars there and then,
yes, of course.
instead of,
getting
an award?
If you remember, a similar incident had happened in India, where Sajid Khan and Ashutosh Gwarikar got into a tiff at certain award function. And I think the way Ashutosh justified, whatever Sajid was doing was not right. The way he was talking, the way everything was done, that is how Will Smith should have done, is what he should have done today. He shouldn't have gone to the stage and hit somebody. That's violence. Tomorrow, this is going to become a trend. Yeah. We as comedians, how do we protect ourselves? Someone from the audience comes and gives us a punch on the face. How do we react? Look at the way Chris Rock reacted. He was polite. He just went on with the script. Hats off to that guy.
Yeah. Papa CJ, the fact that he was talking about, a deeply personal sort of illness, something which Will Smith's wife has spoken about in the past, alopecia, it's something which has an impact on people at so many levels, psychologically certainly at one level as well. Different types of this illness cannot be fixed at all. It's irreversible. So in a scenario like that, again, it just at one level seemed to be a really silly, stupid joke to be making, infringing on a person's personal space in that manner, that too about an illness. This isn't at all to justify or suggest that the violence was okay, not at all. But I find that offensive as well. To a point which that offended me. When I learnt of the context of the comment.
Vishnu, the general rule is you're allowed to make fun of things that you're going through yourself. So I broke my leg. Yes. I had to learn how to walk again. I wrote a whole new show about it. But the thing is, as comedians as well, very often we get it wrong.
Yeah.
Very often, all of us as comics, as artists, we are growing. And it is for the audience to teach us by not laughing. So often I get told that, comedians in India are vulgar. Now, a comedian cracks a joke because he wants the audience to laugh, right?
Right.
Now, if you want him to stop cracking that joke, stop laughing. Sometimes I argue that the audience is vulgar because the only reason comedians keep doing those jokes is because they are being endorsed by audiences.
Yeah.
So do comedians get it wrong? Yes. Is it insensitive to joke about somebody's illness when they're going through a lot of pain? Yes. But so much of it is so contextual. Right. We don't know the rapport that they share as individuals. We don't know the context of that environment. We don't know how much Will Smith's wife, Jada, has spoken about it herself, how comfortable she is about it. If you see the kind of things that Ricky Gervais has done in the past, I mean, far beyond what Chris Rock has probably done.
Yeah.
So, there's a context in which that the host gets up at the Oscars and does these kind of things. So there are just so many lines to it that it's, there is no right. You can debate about this till kingdom come.
When it actually happened, and when I saw the video, I thought that it was a setup. It didn't seem real to me. Yeah. I mean, it's only when Will Smith started abusing Chris Rock in that manner when I realized that something was amiss. Because as I think Neeti pointed out, he was actually smiling when that joke was made. Something snapped at him at that stage. Nishant, roasting is something. It's a form of extreme humor and comedy. It's been tried out here in India with fairly disastrous results because various governments and others feel that that doesn't work for our sanskari ways or whatever it is. But that actually pushes the line to vulgarity. It pushes the line to what a lot of people would consider hurt. Is that what Chris Rock was perhaps sort of pushing towards? A line of humor which perhaps in a larger context doesn't really work?
I think, so comedy is a very subjective thing. Something could be really funny to me and, you might not find it funny at all. But it did not look to me, what Chris Rock did, it did not look like a joke that, I would expect somebody to get on stage and punch him. Even we were talking about, joking about somebody's illness. And I have, and I'm sure, my colleagues here, my fellow comedians have also. I have performed in a room full of cancer survivors and cancer patients who are still going through the treatment. And I was asked to make jokes about cancer, and I was not comfortable. I how can I do that? Like, there are people who are survivors, but still, people are still going through the treatment.
Right.
But they told me, no, this is what we want you to do. And I did it, and they laughed. But I was nervous in the beginning, So, again, it depends on the comfort level, from person to person. And we really do not know what kind of relation they have, share. Yeah. This might be a drawing room joke that he did on stage and, and
he thought he'd get away with it, which clearly he didn't.
Yeah. For first 5 seconds, he did actually.
Yeah, he did. And then it just, it was ruinous for the Oscars at one level. It was ruinous at so many levels. And his reputation of Will Smith, it's just taken such a hammering. But do spare a thought for his wife, who does suffer from alopecia. It's a serious illness at so many levels. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us. Lots to mull over as we talk about comedy and the lines that can be followed and which should perhaps not be breached. A couple of comments which have been coming in on Coup on this, so many in fact. Tushar writes in, says, physical attacks are not at all justified. It's not something that could be accepted at all. At the same time, he received the Best Actor award. So Rohit says, this is not the first time a joke has been cracked at any award function, and it's always taken with sporting spirit by celebrities. Why not this time? A couple of views over there. It's a move which will create the largest multi-screen player in India, the merger of PVR and Inox Leisure, featuring two of the biggest names in the industry, Ajay Bijli of PVR, Siddharth Jain of Inox. The combined entity called PVR Inox will have well over 1,500 screens eventually. It'll promise aggressively priced tickets for consumers and a redefining experience. Now, the group will have a far more profitable balance sheet and hope to come out of the mess created by COVID, which has really hit their industry very badly. But in the interim period, viewer choices and tastes have changed somewhat. How is that going to affect the traditional industry? Ajay Bijli, who will be the MD of the merged entity, joins us now, as does Siddharth Jain, the director of Inox. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for being with us. Ajay, let me come to you first. Do you believe that this will give you, as a combined entity, a fair chance at competing with OTT platforms?
Thanks, Vishnu, for having us here. I've had a little contrarian view to calling OTT players as our competition because obviously their voice and the decibel level increased a lot because our shutters were down. But in-home entertainment is something that's always been there for the longest time through VHS, DVD, LDs, and then satellite and now OTT platforms. But definitely there is no shying away from the fact that last 2 years, the habits changed. OTT players were buying movies, film fraternity was selling movies, and people were not coming to the cinemas. But we always had a long-term belief because cinema going is not alien to us Indians. We love going out. It's still our number one form of entertainment. And a lot of big players like 83, Suryavanshi, RRR, they all waited for theaters to open and then release the movies. So I think business has bounced back now. People have once again given us the verdict that cinemas are here to stay. Film fraternities releasing movies. People have flocked back to the cinemas with the pandemic. Thank God it's under control.
Right.
And I think in the long run, both will coexist.
Siddharth, that said, is this essentially survival for this form, the traditional form of watching movies, given how difficult COVID was and the financial hit your industry took?
Rather than survival, it is impetus to growth is the way we see it. We continue to operate our individual brands very well. We continue to serve our consumers very well. March 2022, this month, has been, almost a historic month, potentially one of the best months from the Indian theatrical industry, in our history. So I don't think it's a question of survival, as we can see in our numbers. It's more about how do we take this to the next level.
Ajay, OTT platforms have deep pockets. How do you plan to compete with that?
Well, as I said, they have deep pockets, but they're also very sensible in terms of how they spend that money. The quantitative and the qualitative benchmark of any movie gets set when it comes theatrically first, right, unless the movie is made only for, or TV shows rather. So if you remember pre-pandemic, OTT platforms had long-form storytelling formats.
Yes.
You had your movie, TV shows, but suddenly because there was a dearth of content, because shootings had stopped, suddenly they started buying movies without watching them. So even if they have deep pockets, they still like to see the theatrical performance because then, sorry for my phrase, no blind child can be done.
Siddharth, how difficult was it for you to work with Ajay, or the idea that you're going to be working with a competitor, the meeting of minds, wanting to protect your own interests and what you have set up, and having to work and perhaps visualizing a situation where you're on a TV screen right now with Ajay on a common interview. How did that work for you? That entire process, it must have been very difficult. Be honest about it.
It's in fact one of the easiest decisions, and this is a day I would be...
Is that because Ajay is a nice guy or because it made business sense?
Am I supposed to stop my video and mute?
No. Go ahead, Siddharth. Yeah.
No, I think it was an extremely easy decision for us. We have worked together, with PVR at an industry level for, more than a decade. And we've known each other, we've respected each other's companies, the management teams for a very long time. We are super excited. I think it's a game changer for our industry, for the consumer. And I'm just so happy to be able to collaborate with them. And it's going to bring out the best in us.
Siddharth, the legal route ahead, approval is still required, I presume, from the Competition Commission, perhaps SEBI as well. Is that a potential problem, or is it a step that you need to overcome, which you think you will?
No, certainly not. I think over the next 6 to 9 months, there are certain regulatory tasks in front of us, whether it's SEBI approval, NCLT approval, etc. With respect to CCI, what we've been advised by counsels is we do not need to notify this transaction to CCI. We must also keep in mind the definition of the market. A size of, the movie exhibition market is not just, cinema screens. It's the whole gamut. It's where a movie is showcased, whether it is in OTT platforms, digital, satellite. We have 9,500 screens in India already. And we are both publicly listed companies, and we're going to comply with the law and everything that's required for that.
Ajay, in your press statement, I noticed that it was mentioned that this is, or perhaps a quote of yours, that this is a process which lends itself to cost optimization opportunities. What does that actually mean? How would that potentially influence the experience of people, cost optimization? I mean, I hope, when we go to a cinema hall, it would be a degraded experience. One would only hope that it would be a better experience.
It'll be definitely a better experience. Well, scale gives you cost efficiencies both on capex and opex. So that's what my comment meant. Because when you have scale, you can do bulk purchases for both capex and opex, and that will bring in the synergies, that will bring in the efficiencies, and the benefit of that will be passed on to the consumer. But no compromises will be made to the experience. In fact, Vishnu, if we talk about OTT platforms and out-of-home movie watching experience, if there's one thing that we need to do a lot as make that difference between experience at the cinema, big screen, great sound, projection system, seating comfort, and watching it at home, very, very different. So I think we will be investing a lot in making sure that it's more and more experiential when you go out and watch a movie and you say, wow, I'm glad I took this decision. So I think it's only to enhance the consumer experience rather than compromise.
Siddharth, just tell us about what went on in your mind for these last 2 terrible years, COVID and then more COVID, then Omicron, and now there seems to be a bit of a silver lining. But it must have been a very stressful experience for you running a large organization, obviously for the people who you employ. Your futures, your ideas, your visions, all the hard work that you put in. Could you tell us what went through your mind in the last 2 years before this merger with Ajay sort of worked out?
So certainly a time, that wasn't scripted for or, hasn't been taught in textbooks during our education. And that's something that, I would really like to thank all, our 9,000 employees, and I'm sure Ajay would like to do the same, for standing by the company during this time. Even as all my colleagues in the company, the uncertainty in front of all of us back in 2020 and 2021 was just tremendous. Just nobody knew what the future was going to be. But to hold my entire senior management team, they have been, my pillars of strength, absolutely. And I have the highest regard and respect for them for helping us navigate through these times, and really to see March 2022 be potentially our highest month in our history.
Wow.
It's just a feeling of euphoria. Yeah, to be able to come through this stuff. We feel like we've been through a battle and come out of it. But I can tell you we've come out on top for sure.
March 2022 is going to be your highest month ever? I mean, that's the demand we're talking about.
That's correct. Absolutely.
Wow. Ajay, are you seeing crazy numbers as well? Really positive?
Absolutely. I mean, the content doesn't matter, big or small. Gangu Bhai, Batman came, which is international. Then you had Kashmir Files and now RRR. It's been just incredible. And March typically is not a good month because exams are going on, IPL season starts, lots of things are happening. But this March is just phenomenal. And it's not just the pent-up demand. It's just very, very naturally it comes to us Indians to go out and entertain ourselves.
Yes. It's the way we've been brought up.
Absolutely.
So Ajay, just tell us, were there moments in the last couple of years, 2 years or so, where you felt that, it might just fold?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the volatility, nobody can, deny that it was a very low period. But running a company with 15,000 people and, which has been around for 25 years, as a leader of the organization, you have to, maintain equanimity.
Wow. Siddharth, how many more multiplexes are you planning to start? Is there a demand for more cinemas? And numerically, I mean, say it's going to take, several months before the merger actually materializes. What are you looking at in terms of the future, in terms of expansion?
Currently we have about 1,500 operational screens combined, and traditionally we've been expanding 60 to 80 screens per chain, so about 150, 180 screens per year. But we want to set an aggressive target for ourselves to double our size in the next 5 to 7 years.
Ajay, last question to you, and then I'll ask Siddharth the same question. What is your message to people who are asking themselves, do I really need to go back to cinema? It's so much easier being lazy, sitting at home and watching OTT. What's your message to them?
My message is that they'll be defying human nature if they do that. they should not deprive themselves of going out and mingling, whether it's cinemas, whether it's hospitality, whether it's tourism, meeting friends. I think that comes naturally. We should not let pandemic take the better of us and make us into reticent people and, whatever, people who want to be at home incarcerated. I think we should just do what comes naturally to us.
Siddharth?
I will just use our tagline. We invite everybody to come and live the movie.
Right. All right. Well, live the movie. There's lots of fun stuff coming out. I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, very much for being with us. Congratulations. It's a huge step for the industry, and hopefully we'll all enjoy ourselves out in multiplexes, cinema halls, as we've done in the past, for new films and a new experience. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. And I must compliment you, Vishnu. Fabulous interview. You are where you are because you know how to conduct an interview.
No, it's just great talking to you and getting such lucid sort of views from both of you. Thank you and congratulations. We'll take a short break. There's more coming up.